Thick fog was creeping between the giant pines when Robert Jordan reached the camp hidden deep in the mountain. He carried on his shoulders not only explosives, but also one man's dreams of changing the course of a war whose end seemed imminent. "You're the American?" He heard a gruff voice coming from the trees. Robert looked up to see a short man with eyes shining with intelligence and caution. "Pablo," the man said, praising his chest with his hand. "Robert," the American replied as he followed the man into the bunker, where others were gathered around a glowing fire. Their eyes followed his every move, as if he might be the last soldier they would ever see. In a dimly lit corner, he saw a face unlike the others. It was Maria, sitting curled up like a wounded bird. Robert felt something tighten in his chest when their eyes met for a moment. "Lunch?" Pablo's wife, Pilar, called out as she placed a pot of hearty stew on the fire. She was a broad-shouldered woman, her voice carrying an unmistakable authority. While eating, Robert began explaining the plan. The bridge must be blown up at first light before enemy forces cross it. "And do you have enough explosives for this small bridge?" Pablo asked with veiled sarcasm. "I have enough to destroy 2 bridges like this," Robert answered confidently. That night, while the others slept, Robert found Maria sitting at the entrance to the cave, looking up at the stars. "Can't you sleep?" he asked her. She shook her head. "Dreams are worse than waking life these days." He sat beside her in silence. Moments later, he felt her small hand searching for his in the darkness. At dawn, they moved like shadows toward the bridge. It was so cold that their breath froze in the air. As Robert set the explosives, he heard Pablo whisper, "This is a foolish idea. We're all going to die." "Then we die," Pilar whispered, examining her weapon. When they heard the first enemy shots, Robert had finished his work. "Go!" he shouted as he pulled the trigger. The bridge exploded in a massive fireball, but bullets began raining down on them from every direction. Robert saw one of his men fall, then another. He felt a sharp sting in his thigh. Warm blood began to trickle down his leg. "Robert!" he heard Maria's voice shout. He turned to see Pablo dragging her away as she reached out for him. "Go!" he shouted. "Finish the mission!" He remained alone, his back against a rock, his rifle in his hand. He fired once, twice, until he had nothing left to fire. He heard footsteps approaching. He closed his eyes and remembered his distant homeland and that brief night with Maria under the stars. When he opened them again, he saw a young fascist officer standing before him, his gun pointed directly at his head. At the last moment, Robert smiled. There was no fear in his eyes, but something like peace. One final shot rang out, and then there was silence. Far away at the edge of the forest, Maria paused to turn around one last time. Her tears were streaming, but Pilar held her hand tightly. "Not now, my little one. Not here." The remaining group walked silently through the forest, carrying in their hearts the memory of the fallen, and in their eyes the first light of a new dawn. Their bridge had been destroyed, but the war would go on.